The Cowboys just pulled off something wild, and most of you probably slept on it. And before we dive deep into what Dallas actually did here, hit that subscribe button right now because we're covering every single Cowboys move the second it happens, and I'm not seeing enough of you subscribing, so do me that favor and let's get into why this roster move might be way smarter than anyone realizes. So, voluntary workouts kicked off for America's team, and of course, the media couldn't help themselves. They had to create drama out of thin air. And we're going to address all of it today, including why the front office just signed multiple veterans, what it means for the depth chart, and most importantly, why the Dee Winters trade during the draft is looking like an absolute steal when you actually watch the tape. But here's what nobody is talking about. The way Dallas is building this roster right now has a method to it that's flying completely under the radar, and once you see the pattern, you're going to understand why the coaching staff is smiling right now. Let's start with the signings because yes, Dallas went out and brought in Marquez Valdes-Scantling, along with a couple other experienced guys, and immediately the hot take artists started screaming that this means George Pickens is gone, or that there's panic in the building, and I'm here to tell you that's complete nonsense. MVS is 31 years old. He's a journeyman receiver who spent time in Green Bay, won 2 Super Bowl rings with Kansas City, and bounced around San Francisco and Pittsburgh last year, and he's coming to Dallas on a 1-year deal. They also signed Tyler Johnson, another veteran receiver who just came from the Jets. And he's got a ring on his resume too, 5th-round pick, just like Valdes-Scantling. And both of these guys are here for one reason, and one reason only, to compete for that 4th wide receiver spot and provide bodies during training camp. Let me be crystal clear about this. These signings have absolutely nothing to do with the top of the depth chart, nothing to do with CeeDee Lamb, nothing to do with George Pickens, nothing to do with Ryan Flournoy. And if you think otherwise, you're buying into the narrative the media wants you to swallow. The Cowboys said from the jump they wanted to add 10 to 12 players after the draft to round out the 90-man roster, and that's exactly what they're doing. They've already signed like 5 or 6 undrafted free agents, and these veteran receivers are camp bodies, period, end of story. If you see MVS or Tyler Johnson getting real snaps during the regular season, that means we got hit with serious injuries or guys massively underperformed, and that's a problem. But right now, this is just smart roster management filling out competition for the back-end spots, nothing more, nothing less. Now, the linebacker signing is where it gets interesting because Curtis Robinson is a name that connects directly to the new defensive philosophy, and if you're paying attention, this is where you start seeing the blueprint. Robinson was originally an undrafted free agent out of Stanford back in 2021 with the Broncos, and guess who was coaching in Denver at that time? Christian Parker, our new defensive coordinator who was the defensive backs coach there, and clearly saw something he liked in Robinson. After Denver, Robinson spent most of his time with the 49ers, and here's the kicker: he played alongside Dee Winters in San Francisco. So now Dallas just reunited 2 guys who know each other's tendencies, who've been in the same system, who can communicate without hesitation, and that, my friends, is not a coincidence. The Cowboys are doing something sneaky smart right now, and I peeped this during the draft. They're bringing in guys who have played together before, and that eliminates so many chemistry issues, so many communication breakdowns that plagued this defense last year. You bring in Dee Winters from San Francisco, then you add Curtis Robinson, who was his teammate, you got Marshawn Kneeland, then you draft Devin Moore, who played with LT Overton at Ole Miss, you got Tyler Booker and Drew Shelton, who were high school teammates, and that offensive lineman from Penn State also has ties to guys already in the building. Every little advantage matters, and when you can shortcut the learning curve by bringing in guys who already have that built-in chemistry, that's a cheat code, and I love that Dallas is being intentional about it. This goes back to the old Jimmy Johnson days, when he'd walk the field before games, looking for slick spots on the turf, trying to find any tiny edge. Well, this is the modern version of that, and it's gonna pay off when guys don't have to spend 3 months figuring out how to talk to each other on the field. So yeah, Robinson is a camp body too, but he's a camp body with a purpose. And that purpose is adding another guy who knows the system, knows the linebacker next to him, and can help this whole defense click faster than it normally would. And that's the kind of stuff that doesn't show up in box scores, but wins you games in December. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, because I know some of you clicked on this video just to hear about George Pickens and the so-called drama around his franchise tag. And I'm going to make this real simple for you. There is no drama. Jeremy Fowler reported last week that the Cowboys received a verbal commitment by email from Pickens' agent saying he's going to sign the franchise tag, and yes, as of the start of OTAs, he hasn't physically signed it yet. But Dallas has made it clear over and over they have zero plans to trade him, zero interest in moving on, and zero concern about the timeline. The national media is doing what they always do. They're manufacturing fake controversy around the Cowboys because that's how they stay relevant, that's how they get clicks, that's how they drive engagement, and the only way we stop feeding the beast is by not falling for it. Do not engage with the nonsense. Do not give life to these garbage narratives. Do not let them bait you into thinking there's some civil war brewing in the locker room, because there isn't. George Pickens is going to sign his tag when he's ready. The team knows it. His agent confirmed it, and that's the end of the story. Every answer the Cowboys needed to get, they got, so why are we still talking about this? Because ESPN needs something to argue about on First Take. That's why. I'm not spending another second on fake drama when there's real football stuff to break down. So let's move on to the part of this video that actually matters, and that's the trade Dallas made during the draft that might end up being one of the smartest moves they made all offseason, and I'll admit I didn't give it enough credit at first. The Cowboys sent a 5th-round pick to San Francisco for inside linebacker Dee Winters, and when it happened, I was lukewarm on it. I thought, okay, decent depth piece, maybe a rotational guy, but nothing that moves the needle. And then I started digging into the tape. I started listening to what people in San Francisco were saying about him, and I started connecting the dots on why Dallas has been chasing this dude for a while. And now I'm telling you, this could be a sneaky home run. Let me hit you with what 49ers GM John Lynch said after the trade went down. He said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that Dee Winters is one of the favorite guys in that locker room, that he's done a lot for them on the field, and that Dallas had been interested in him for a long time. Then Lynch dropped this gem. He said the talks probably started when we were discussing Osa Odigizua with Stephen Jones, and they stayed on it. We held them off for a while, and then Friday of the draft, we felt it was the right thing to do for our team. Now let's unpack that for a second, because there's gold in that statement. First of all, Stephen Jones is clearly the one making these calls. He's the one driving these conversations, and that tells you the power structure in this front office, whether you like it or not. Second, Dallas has been tracking Dee Winters for months, maybe longer, which means this wasn't some panic move or a last-second idea. This was targeted, this was intentional. This was a guy they believed in and stayed patient on until the price was right. The fact that San Francisco held out as long as they did tells you they valued him. They didn't want to just give him away, but eventually they looked at their linebacker depth and decided they could afford to move him, especially if it meant getting draft capital back, and the Cowboys pounced. Fred Warner, one of the best linebackers in football, had glowing things to say about Winters, and that should tell you everything about the kind of teammate and player he is. But I don't want to just tell you what people said about him. I want to show you what he actually does on the field, because that's where you see why Dallas wanted him so bad. I found some all-22 film breakdown from week 2 of last season, when a 49ers content creator was going through Dee Winters' tape against the Cardinals, and the way this guy explained what Winters brings to a defense made everything click for me. Let me paint the picture for you. Arizona comes out in a 4-receiver set to the short side of the field. They motion and try to create a mismatch. They're running a flood concept, trying to put a vertical stretch on the underneath defender, and that defender is Dee Winters. The Cardinals want to hit the tight end on a deep out route. That's their target. That's where Kyler Murray is looking, and Winters has to read it, diagnose it, and react in a split second. First thing he does is gain depth to his landmark. Then he turns and locates the route. He's anticipating the outbreaking route, and he's already in position. But here's where it gets crazy. The tight end isn't open, so Kyler has to check it down to the flat, and when that ball leaves his hand, Dee Winters is 20 yards away from the receiver. 20 yards? And by the time that receiver catches the ball, Winters is already on him like a heat-seeking missile, and it turns into a 2-yard gain instead of a chunk play. The closing speed is unreal, the burst is elite, and that right there is his superpower. He can drop deep, take away the intermediate routes, and still close on the underneath stuff fast enough to suffocate it, and that's exactly what this Cowboys defense needs. When you pair that kind of closing ability with a guy like DeMarvion Overshown, who has similar explosiveness and range, you start to see a linebacking core that can actually cover ground, that can actually erase mistakes, that can actually keep offenses from nickel and dimming you to death, and that's been the problem for years in Dallas. We've had linebackers who were either too slow to cover or too small to stop the run or just didn't have the instincts to be in the right place, and Winters checks a lot of boxes that we've been missing. He's got the athleticism, he's got the football IQ, he's got the versatility to play in multiple coverages, and he led the 49ers in tackles last season. So it's not like he's some scrub riding the bench. He was a core piece of that defense. Now, I'm not saying Dee Winters is the next Luke Kuechly. I'm not saying he's about to make the Pro Bowl. But here's what I am saying. You don't need Hall of Famers at every position to win a Super Bowl. You need guys who can execute the scheme, who can do their job, who have the traits to make your system work, and Winters has those traits. Go ahead and name the starting linebackers for the Seahawks Super Bowl team. I'll wait, you probably can't, and that's fine, because they didn't need stars at every spot. They had a great scheme, great coaching, and guys who fit what they were trying to do, and that's what Dallas is building right now. Christian Parker didn't come here to copy and paste what Seattle did, but he did bring that philosophy of putting players in position to succeed, teaching them how to play fast, how to communicate, how to trust the system, and if he can get Dee Winters playing to his ceiling, this defense is going to look a whole lot different than it did last year. Add in the connection Winters already has with Curtis Robinson from their time in San Francisco, and you've got two guys who can help install the defense faster, who can be extra coaches on the field, who can make sure everyone's on the same page, and that kind of stuff wins games in November and December when the margin for error shrinks. I've been going through more of his tape and I'm not ready to crown him yet, but I'll say this. If the coaching staff can maximize what he does well and minimize his weaknesses, this could end up being one of the most underrated moves of the entire offseason. And by week 8, we might be sitting here wondering why more people weren't talking about it in May. Look at the linebacker room right now. You got DeMarvion Overshown, who's a freak athlete. You got Marshawn Kneeland, who can play multiple spots. You got Dee Winters, who brings speed and instincts. You got Curtis Robinson, who knows the system, and now you sprinkle in a couple more camp bodies, and maybe another veteran before the season starts. And suddenly this isn't the disaster everyone thought it was going to be. Would I love to see them add one more proven vet, someone with a couple thousand snaps under their belt? Absolutely, and I think they've still got room to do that. But I'm not panicking like I was 2 months ago, because I see what they're trying to build here. This isn't about name recognition. This is about fit. This is about traits. This is about coaching. And if Parker is half as good as we've been told he is, then these guys are going to surprise people. And the crazy part is, Dallas might have gotten the best value of any linebacker moved this offseason by only giving up a 5th rounder for a guy who started and produced on one of the best defenses in football last year. San Francisco didn't want to lose him, but they had depth and they needed picks. Dallas needed a starting caliber linebacker, and they got one without breaking the bank, without giving up premium draft capital, and without overpaying in free agency. And that's how you build a sustainable roster. You find value where other teams can't keep guys. You target players before the market inflates, and you trust your scouts and your coaches to develop them. And this front office, for all the criticism they get, just did exactly that. So where does this leave us heading into the summer? Well, we've got a wide receiver room that's stacked at the top, with CeeDee and Pickens and some young talent behind them fighting for reps. We've got a linebacking core that's faster, more athletic, and more connected than it's been in years. And we've got a coaching staff that's installing a system designed to maximize effort and execution over raw talent. And if you're a Cowboys fan, that should get you excited. Yeah, we've heard the promises before. Yeah, we've seen the hype fall flat. But this feels different because the approach is different. They're not just throwing money at big names. They're not just drafting for headlines. They're being intentional about scheme, fit, about chemistry, about building a foundation that can actually hold up when the pressure's on. And that's what separates pretenders from contenders. The media's going to keep trying to stir up drama about George Pickens, about the linebacker spot, about whether Jerry's lost his mind, but we don't have to buy into it. We can look at the actual moves being made, the actual strategy being deployed, and judge it for what it is. And what it is right now is a team that's adding pieces with purpose, that's creating competition at every level, and that's setting themselves up to surprise people who've already written them off. Do I think this roster is perfect? No. Do I think there's still work to be done? Absolutely. But I also think this front office and this coaching staff have shown more intentionality this offseason than we've seen in a long time. And if they keep building this way, if they keep stacking small advantages, if they keep targeting guys who fit the culture and the scheme, then we're going to look back at this offseason as the turning point. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think Dee Winters is going to start by week 1, or is he a rotational piece? Do you believe in Christian Parker's system enough to trust these linebackers? And are you as intrigued as I am by the way they're bringing in guys who already know each other? Because that's the kind of stuff that could be the difference between 8 wins and 12 wins this season. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let me know if you think I'm too high on Winters, or if you're starting to see what I'm seeing, and if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. Because we're breaking down every move, every rumor, every bit of film that matters for this Cowboys team. And I need you locked in with us as we push toward the season. This is Blue and Silver Nation, and we're not just fans, we're film junkies, we're cap experts. We're the ones who see the details everyone else misses. So make sure you're part of this community, and let's ride into this season with our eyes wide open, ready to see if Dallas can finally back up the talk with real results on the field.